I grew up in Honduras, in a small town, very well known for banana production and agricultural. And I'm one of three daughters, so I was raised in an all-girl household. And certainly, growing up in Honduras, culturally expectations somewhat different for young women versus young men. I think things are changing, but certainly that was my experience, and I was just very fortunate to be supported by my parents and really um, set up to pursue my career aspirations.
Oh, that's really awesome. How about you, Rosa? Was it something similar or different for you?
It was a little different because, I grew up in San Luis Potosí in Mexico. And then unfortunately, we lost my mom when I was very young.
Oh,
So I
sorry.
had two brothers. And so I was mainly growing up with my father, but then also my grandparents and, our extended family. So I think in that sense, it almost was like the expectations were the same as of my brothers. So my father was, very equal for the three of us. So, I mean, in that sense, I think I kind of have to, grow up the same way that they did. And in a way, I mean, I feel that prepared me for a lot of stuff.
Yeah, certainly as a young girl growing up in Honduras, it's not what I expected at a young age. So I started my career, my academic career at Zamorano. It's a school of agriculture. It's very highly regarded in Latin America, and again, it was a small, certainly it's much smaller female population than male. It was a very hands-on environment where we really learned by very much the philosophy of the school is learn by doing. So physically demanding at times, as well as of course intellectually. Um, so yes, it was an experience that really shaped me in terms of really character building and really kind of
Yeah.
finding within myself kind of yes I have the strength to push through and achieve my goals. And the other thing is that was a place where I found the opportunity to continue my university studies in the US. So I earned a scholarship and came to the University of Arkansas to study food science. And I knew, having had broad exposure to food production, that was really where my passion was. And from very early on, I had my sights set on doing corporate R&D as an undergraduate. So I did continue on with my master's at Cornell. And again, still with the mindset that I want to do research and development. I want to apply science in this way to develop delightful products
Wow.
for many people. And that's what led me kind of one step at a time through internships, and then getting into the food industry as a career where I've worked over the last 15 plus years.
So how early did you really know that I'm going to do this? I'm going to be a corporate woman, and really, who inspired you to do that?
I think for me it was chasing. It wasn't necessarily the ambition to be in corporate. It was more driven by a curiosity about science, a love of food, combining the two, and then this is a place where you can achieve that and have a kind of in a mass way, right?
Yeah, yeah, it's a country of opportunities. Totally.
And certainly I think it also helped, particularly when I was a student at Cornell, hearing testimony from alumni and what they do, and that for me really brought it to life. It's like, oh, that's what a day in their life looks like, what they do. um, and it really that's it was more chasing that than necessarily a specific corporation.
Hmm. So, Rosa, what brought you to food and science industry? Something similar?
Yeah, but I think, I mean, when I was in high school, I still didn't know what I wanted to do. It was very unclear. And I always wanted to have something that was related to math and to science.
Mhm.
But I wasn't completely sure what that would be. So we had from the university that I went to, in San Luis, we had a group of people that came, then to talk about all the different opportunities, that there were in the university. And they, talked about different things, and everything was related to chemistry and biology. And then they talked about food science and well, it's food engineering. And I was like so curious about that because, they even brought like samples of products from the market, and then they say, well, what goes behind like making these products is not like, it's not a chef, it's not somebody that is preparing something in a kitchen. There are a lot of science involved in these products. So that really, catch my interest. And then I started researching a little bit more on that. And that's how I got into food engineering. And
Wow. Awesome. All I can think of is eating food. I never thought that there was any engineering behind it. America, right? We know that it hasn't been an easiest thing for women to climb the ladder, right? Whether we agree or not, gender inequality exists in corporate America, right? And this is why WING's program is all about women's leadership development, because I knew firsthand, being in the industry, financial industry that is, for 27 years, that it has been a challenge, especially for women of color, right? It has been a big, huge challenge. So I want to talk a little bit about that. So Hazel, talk to me about what are some of the challenges that you faced, and especially when you started to kind of grow into a leadership role?
Yes, I would say two things come to mind. Number one, and I think part of it is cultural in the environment I grew up. Um, there's an expectation that you will, for lack of a better phrase, toot your horn. And for me, that growing up, that's just impolite. It's not something you do. So coming to terms with, I have to talk about my achievements. I have to talk about myself. I have to be very assertive in that regard to really earn my place and kind of be on the radar, right, for future leadership roles. So that was one of the things that I had to work on, and do it in a way that's true to me, right? I think just if it was flat out bragging about I did this or I did that, it would have been, it's not who I am, or how I grew up. So I've really put it in the context of what impact have I had? How have I made a difference? And even in terms of building teams or helping in the development of other colleagues in the organization. And when I think about it in those terms, that's okay. That's okay. And even coaching other colleagues who come from a similar place as I do, where I get it, I hear you, I've been there, and helping them kind of think of it in those terms versus this impolite thing that you were always told not to do, is to brag about yourself. So that's one. And I would say the other one has been really really working to satisfy what we think of typically as the leadership role model, which is, I would say, in generally in corporate America, is this very assertive, commanding personality. So generally, I think more quiet leaders that tend to not necessarily fit that mold. So again, it's I hear it, I recognize it. It's how do you start to nudge yourself to still remain true to who you are. And again, this is something that other women in the organization that I work with, they are same, right? I work with them. I've been down that kind of, or I am on that path as well. So certainly something that I think that we need to. I certainly am open to hearing others' perspectives and how others have managed it. And it's two ways to see it. Do you conform to this is the mold, so you grow to fit it, or do workplaces start to embrace a diversity of styles in a more open way?
Hazel, how did you do this? How did you overcome that big, huge challenge which was inside you and you had to fight it? And also not show that you're fighting it, right?
Yeah, I've been fortunate to have had, other women who've blazed a trail, and certainly
Yeah.
other Latinas in my organization who achieved, incredible things, and who will will support the new colleagues kind of working their way up the ranks. So
Mhm.
certainly there hasn't been a shortage of role models
For
in
you.
in my organization that have also been very generous with their time and support.
Yeah. That's amazing. Rosa, what are your comments on this topic?
I think it's very similar, and I think one of the things is also our cultural background, because we always think more on the collective side. So as Hazel says, it's difficult to promote yourself, and sometimes even just to speak up, because then I think that was one of the things, like,
Yeah.
with during my career, like even in the earlier years, like I would have people say, like, you need to speak up, because then nobody else is going to speak up for you. And so you start learning, and then eventually then you continue doing it. But I think it's I mean, even also when I came to live in the US, I think one of the things was um, you know the cultural background. It was difficult to adjust, and not only in your personal life, then you miss your family, and it's a different country, it's a different culture, but also the way that you work with other people, and then you have to adjust to that as well.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of adjustments, but I think once you understand the culture, and then also, as Hazel mentioned, not to lose yourself as well, because at the end of the day, then you are who you are. So you just have to adjust yourself, and do you know speak up. I think that's one of the very big things that I learned, and you just have to speak up.
And on the subject of speaking up, I think for me the barrier was, and I recognized it was, I'm in my mind thinking, formulating, or I want to get the context and the response just right. And it's just coming to terms with, it's okay if it's half baked. If you
Yeah.
say it with conviction, and you kind of set the tone
Yes.
that, you know what, this is not fully, it's a
Yeah.
thinking out loud or whatever it might be,
Yeah.
that that is certainly, I have found it's effective, because then people are like, okay, let's work through it together, versus if you're holding back until you have the perfect answer, where it's hard to, perfection is not easy to come by. So
Yeah, and there's a good versus gutsy, right? I mean, we were constantly trying to be good, but gutsy is equally important. And as you both have mentioned, that being able to talk about yourself, your accomplishment, and what you want to do, and your ideas, and have that voice be heard, it's not easy. But would you say that's one advice that you want to give to your, or younger yourself?
Yes, I think that, and also to take more risk. I think, in a way, like I always try to play it safe. Not always, but I have to have the information before I act.
Yeah.
And if I, was to talk to my younger self, I will be like, just take the risk. I mean, what?
Yeah.
mhm. Yeah, certainly. So I've had a number of mentors along the way, and the relationships have evolved. I think in the early days of my career, it was almost like blind dating. Like, we'll set you up with someone, and just let's just hope that there's a connection
Some
there.
match. Yes. Yes.
And over the years, I have found it's, for me, it's worked much better when it's more organic, where you naturally have a rapport with someone, that you've built a relationship, they know you, you can be very open and honest, and there's this level of trust,
Yeah.
right, to really have very, very good conversations. um, and frankly, I've had just as good male mentors as I have had female. So
Mhm.
certainly I think it's not specific to one gender or the other. And and then, as I've progressed in the organization, as I have my own teams, certainly it's an area that I'm very passionate about, is how do I, even in a small way, make an impact on someone else's career, and help them. More importantly than anything is to become leaders, to build leadership skills, right? And kind of have that pipeline of leaders in the organization. So definitely, and again, for me, it's across the board, for my team members to help them kind of put the thinking behind what are their aspirations, and to recognize, like, I find, and it pains me to say, but generally women, I think, tend to not see how much potential they have, right?
Yeah.
So it's kind of, guys,
Mhm.
there's a lot you can do, and finding ways that they can get that confidence, right? That they and recognize what potential they have, um, so they can start to kind of build on their experience into their careers.
So Rosa, I want to first congratulate you for taking the step and say, I need help and I need mentors and I need to set the time for my self-development, right? I mean, we all always want to do it, but being able to actually set that time aside so that you can focus on your own development is a huge thing. And full-time mom and full-time career difficult. So congratulations for being in the program. Talk to me a little bit
Thank
about
you.
what do you think, what do you like about Wings program that can help Hispanic women like such as yourself, and also tell us what should we do so we can help more Hispanic women leaders.
I think, I mean, well, it's been a great experience, and we only have done this then for a couple of months, so I'm still kind of getting my bearings about the program.
Yep.
But I think, I mean, from what I have seen and what I have learned so far, is that it is a mindset. So I think coming to the program, I was kind of expecting, what we normally do. Then you get lecture about something, and then you go practice about it. But one thing that this program is teaching me is that you have to make the effort yourself, because then you create the habit. And if even, I mean, we don't think about this in leadership, but then a lot of these things are habits. So you just have to create that mindset, and then you have to continue having this growth mindset. And I think it's part of what this program is teaching me. So it's very self-driven, which I'm probably not used to it, but it's something that I'm learning. But I mean, so far I think there is a lot of dialogue, with my mentor, then also the champion, with you, within the team. So I mean, you just have a lot of resources that are available to you, and it's been a great experience. And I think I'm a big believer of growing your village and having your village. So I think this is a perfect example of how women can help other women, and
Each other.
then also being able then to have the one-on-one with a mentor. I mean, sometimes you think that you are going through these things and it's only yourself that is going through that. And once you start talking to somebody that is going through the same, it's like, oh, okay, well, it wasn't that isolated. I mean, I can relate to other people that has gone through the same things.
Yes, I think it's such an enabler when you have a partner who is, if we talk about equality, like we've talked about this, right? Starting here in your home, and really sharing the responsibilities of the children and the household and so forth. So yes, I think for me it's having that massive support. It's really, I can't imagine having to do it all here and then go and show up to work and do it all there. I think it would be much more that much more challenging. So, but I don't know that that's necessarily the standard in our society. So I do feel very, very fortunate that have struck it's a great balance in this household.
How about you, Rosa?
Yeah, it is. I think it is very important, because otherwise you are not able to do the same. And I've also, I've talked, I've worked with other women, and one of the things is because in my position, then we have to travel quite a bit. So if you don't have that support at home, I mean, whatever it is, I mean, then family members, babysitters, friends,
Yes.
then you are not able to do that because, you know, you cannot be, for example, in my case, I wouldn't be able then to travel, you know, 30-40%, how, whatever amount of traveling it is, and then be thinking, you know, well, you know, is, you know, my daughter okay? Did she get home from school okay? You know, all the different things that are going at home. And once you have that backup and that support, then, you know, then you are able to do a lot of other things.
I would say it's important to have an objective in mind. I almost think of it as a lighthouse, and what is that vision or that North Star that you're working towards. I think having and that can change, right? Because when you're just out of college, it certainly, for me, it evolved over time. But I think having kind of that goal for where you're headed, and then hard work. I mean, this is no secret, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It takes hard work, and like Rosie was saying, it also takes having a support network. So whether it's if it's academic or career wise, your network of mentors and people who support you, who believe in you, who can, you know, when you're having to make these decisions that at the time seem, if only I had a broader perspective to guide me. It's in those moments where you need that that network, and then of course family, like we said, right?
You
There to
summarized
nudge you
that.
along.
You summarized the entire interview. Thank you for doing that. It was awesome. Rosa, how about you? What are your parting comments?
I mean, I agree with Hazel, and I think, you know, there are a lot more resources, you know, available, and, you know, as we, you know, progress, I mean, there continue to be more resources available. So it's a matter also to using those resources.
Yes.
Then, I mean, I think a lot of women have worked very hard then for us to be able to have what we have. So we have to continue doing that for the, you know, future generations. And I mean, as Hazel mentioned, then is just to have an objective, to be very determined that that is what you want, because, you know, there will be obstacles, you know, along the way, and you doubt yourself, you know, in many instances, because you want to be the perfect, you know, executive, you want to be the perfect mom, you want to be the perfect wife. So there are a lot of pressure that we put on ourselves, I think, then to do that. And I think we just need to relax, you know, a little bit, and just be very clear of what you want to do, and then find a way to do that.